Welcome to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. And in this certain case, we are cycling through Legendborn, and we are
Cycling back.
we're cycling back through the Legendborn because Oathbound's out, guys, and it's been out for about a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And so hopefully you've read at least chapters prologue through 16, because those are the chapters we are covering today. But before we dive into this breakneck speed of a series, Laura,
So much is happening.
Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Been trying to think, like, as we're sitting, because we were talking before we started recording. I was thinking, have I read anything? I did read some stuff for Spiffbo.
Also, we
Oathsworn.
haven't done this in weeks, so I would hope you've read some things.
I mean, not a guarantee. I've been not in the greatest of states to get through a lot of things, it feels like. So I feel like I've been almost in like a fugue state, just like, I'm still existing. So don't expect a ton of output from me. But I did read some things for Spiffbo, Runelight. I also read Oathsworn Legacy, which was really good. I really liked Oathsworn Legacy. If you're interested in like the more like epic, like almost like similar to a D&D vibe of a group that's like going on all these fantasy adventures together, uh you would like it. And it's about like brothers and everything who are traveling. I really liked it. That's a good one. Check that one out. I also read Jester by Tim Carter. The book was given to me by the author. He sent me an e-arc, and I'm so glad he did because that book was so cute and so fun. It's about this little goblin who starts out as like a slave essentially and is cleaning out basically the poop tunnels of this castle. And,
Okay.
and ends up like as he's cleaning out things like overhearing like plans that some of the higher ups are making at this castle and decides to get involved politically and move his way up through the ranks. And it's the cutest and also like most unique story. Like I just love it. I put a review up on our pod a while ago, but I've really encouraged people to pick it up. There's a lot of poop talk, and the main character is very sarcastic. It's just a very excellent voice that the character has. I thought it was so much fun. I just really loved it. And it's kind of unexpected. You know how like Shrek is like your unexpected hero? I feel like this is also a situation where it's like unexpected hero that we didn't plan to love, but we do, and we'll fight with him till the end. But it's just such a clever way to like tackle some of these like topics, like, oh yeah, like some of this is actually awful, that like they're gonna commit genocide and all these things. And the way that this goblin's like, oh, yeah, I don't think that I want that to happen, so I think I will volunteer to get involved in political office.
You know what?
It's
Sometimes you're not the hero we expected, but you are the hero we
the
needed. And
hero we
sometimes
need.
cleaning up poop is the perfect elected official,
Move your
honestly.
way up from cleaning out the poop tunnels. It's just the cutest book ever. And I really, really love the main character. We're you're in the main character's like mind for a lot of it. And just some of the thoughts were so funny to me where I'm just like, okay, I really connect with this like POV. I'm just be like, well, of course that would happen. And I just loved it. Tim Carter also wrote Majordomo, which was the winner of Sphinx, which is a
Mm.
very excellent novella. But I really liked Jester a lot, and I'm probably going to be picking up a lot more of Carter's work because just a lot of fun, just a really talented writer. I'm very impressed by his stuff. So thank you to Tim for giving me that because that was honestly a little unexpected glimmer of fun that I really needed because I've been having trouble reading and like getting a lot of things done, and it seemed like that was something that kind of like made me excited and happy to read. I was easily able to get through that book, so that was a treat for sure. I'm trying to think of other things that I've read recently. I read The Book Thief for my book club that
Which is a
I
reread for you.
yes, that's one of my favorites. So I have read it before. So this time I did the audio for it, and still just a crushing book. We had pretty good discussion on it at the book club because friends, if you don't remember me saying this, I'm attending an in-person book club to try and meet friends in real life because all of my friends are online and I love you dearly, but I need some real life connections.
Don't we all?
It's a time. So this is my attempt to meet people. But anyways, yeah, we had really good discussions on it. I still think that Hans is such a perfect character. I love the way that Marcus Zuzak wrote this, and I think it's just a book that I'm never going to like forget and just love it so so much. But yeah, it and I get it that people are like burnt out on World War II like historical fiction, but this one is so good and so dear to me that I'll never stop loving it. Never. And then as far as like enjoying things, Hannah, I got this game called The Lord of the Rings, The
Oh, you
Fellowship
were
of the
posting
Ring,
about
the
this on
trick-taking game.
this was published on your Instagram the other night.
Yes, I put it on Instagram the other night. Because I've been so I do like euchre and stuff like that. Um, but I really liked the art that I was seeing. I've been watching a lot of YouTube of people playing board games and recommending board games, and this one came out recently, so a lot of people have been reviewing it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been getting pretty decent reviews. So I was like, okay, it's a fairly cheap game. I'm gonna get it. And you can play it solo, which was appealing to me also. And I just really like the art. It's kind of a stained glass window art style and
Ooh.
the characters look cool. I like stained glass windows, I think, is part of it for me. But I like the arts.
I'm so sorry. That's such a funny statement, but I get it.
I
I
mean,
get
I
it.
like the art style. I like stained glass windows. I can't help it. The broken binding versions of Fond du Lee's Greenbone Saga have stained glass window sprayed edges, and I really like those too. But
Amazing.
well, and I know people were like really not a fan of those, and I was like, oh, I kind of like the stained glass window thing, but whatever, you do you. Um, so I've been playing the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, the trick-taking game. Too long of a name, I'm just gonna say. Like, this is way too long of a name. I think they could have left out like the trick-taking game, or there had to be some other way to name this game. But I get what they're doing. They're giving you a game that covers just the Fellowship, so then they can come out with two more games, which are the Two Towers and the Return of the King, so they can get more money out of me, and they will. They will. But
Laura's like, oh, gaga every time.
they got me. Whoops. But I was playing it and I don't know. I was playing it solo and I've heard some of the reviews say like, "Oh, it doesn't play that well solo. I like it better like in a group or whatever." And I think that's fair, but I don't think that it plays awful in solo, because it is still fairly challenging because you have to play as all of the different characters instead of just playing as your one. And you still
Hmm.
have to meet the requirements on each card, like win two tricks or whatever. So it is still very much a game of like, you have to be dealt a certain hand, and if you're not, you're just not, so you're not going to be able to progress to the next chapter and you have to start over. So it's not a game
Interesting.
where it's like, oh well, it's just so easy to win in solo because you can see all the cards or whatever. No, you still have to meet the certain rules. So I do like it. I think it's, for me, I like it because it's a trick taking game. I like trick taking games. I
Hmm.
also just like something that's small that I can get out quickly and put away quickly. The design is really good, and I just like Lord of the Rings too. So yeah, I think that it's a fun game for sure. And I was talking to my dad about it today, so I'm probably gonna make him play it with me at some point. He's a big euchre fan, so if you like euchre or hearts or anything like that, you'd probably like this.
Interesting.
And then
Okay.
Hannah, the last things that I'll mention, my heart is being like ripped out of me with these all these TV shows right now are coming out at the same time, like all of my favorites, and I'm emotional. The Last of Us has released 3 episodes, and
I honestly
Andor
haven't
has
been able to
released the
watch
first
it.
3 episodes, and I'm just a bundle of emotions from Andor and from The Last of Us, and I just so much is going on in those shows, but specifically Andor, the first 3 episodes, I'm like, this show is a masterpiece, and
Oh,
the
wow.
character who, well, Mon Mothma, the actor who plays that
Hmm.
character, she is such a showstopper in just these first 3 episodes. I'm sure you've seen the gifs of or gifs or whatever however you say that, of her scenes. But oh my gosh, what a heartbreaking 3 episode arc. I was just crushed, and I'm excited for what's to come, and also nervous. Oh,
Wow.
it's it's so good. That show is fantastic. They keep talking it up on like commercials, like it has a 99% score on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, I get it. Maybe I was one of the people that rated it. It's fantastic. It's I love it so much. But Hannah, what have you been reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Well, for reading, I recently read The Woods All Black by Lee Mandello. This is a spooky horror novella, and it is about a trans man, Leslie, who is living in the 1920s, who works as like a frontier nursing person. And he, does go by he, him in his mind, but he lives in the 1920s and it's not safe to live as a man.
Sure.
So he takes on this position in Appalachia, and he goes there and he is unwelcome because the preacher there is awful. But while he's there, he meets another person who he believes is also a trans man, and this person is being ostracized by his community. And then they think there's a monster lurking nearby. So it's very like horror monster telling. It's real spooky and real good. Like it's just a
Mm-hmm.
weird novella. And
Probably
you
like
know me, I love a
scary
good
in multiple
novella.
ways where it's like you're scared for the characters in their real life
Yes.
situations and then also like what's happening here.
Yes, exactly. And warning, there's a little bit of like, I won't say bestiality because they are
Mm.
like people, but it is a romance and there is some different types of sex play
Werewolves.
going on. Um, and it is not werewolves. But I really liked this book. I just like a dark, weird tale, and I think that that's what this is. I also was very interested in like reading about a trans person in the 1920s, and trans people existed forever because trans people exist, and it's just interesting to see this tale from that perspective. um Leslie is someone who talks about how he can live in certain ways in big cities that he can't live in this small rural community. um he tries to use like his nursing to try to hide behind certain things like wearing pants and things like that, but he also is going to put on things to keep him safe. And he talks about things
Hmm.
like contraceptives back in the 1920s and just a lot of things that resonate today. And so I highly recommend this book. My husband actually got it for me for Christmas. He went to our local bookseller and
Hmm.
he was like, she likes weird books and she likes to read diversely. And the bookseller was like, this
That's what they
book.
recommended.
And that
Cool.
was what they recommended. So that
Good
worked out
pick.
really well. And I really, really enjoyed it. So definitely go check that out. I also, for audiobooks, I read The Maid. It's the
Oh
Molly the
yeah.
Maid series. This is a very beloved series. I listened to the
Hmm.
audiobook. I really like the narrator for this audiobook. Let me see who is the narrator for The Maid. Um,
You knew I'd ask.
I know. Uh, Narrated by Lauren Ambrose. So she is the narrator for the story. This tells the story of Molly, who is a woman who I I feel some type of way about this book, like because I read it and I was like, well, Molly's obviously autistic. Like this feels like an autistic representation. And then the author was like, I didn't write her to be autistic. People, it's nice if people read that into it, but that was never the intention. And I'm like, I don't know if I love that you didn't write her to be autistic because she does have a lot of autistic characteristics. Like
I mean,
she
people say the same thing about Murderbot.
I know that, but like Murderbot is an android and
Mhm.
Molly is a person. Like it's one of those things that like kind of rubs me the wrong way in this situation where I'm like,
Mhm.
because like the situations are, it's Molly is a maid at a local hotel and she was supposed to be going to college. Her grandma raised her. Her mom died due to a you find out in the novel. I don't want to give up too much, but her
Mhm.
grandma recently died, and we find out that Molly was supposed to have this money that her grandma set aside to like learn how to be an assistant manager for the hotel. Um, and someone like robbed them due to some of like Molly's trusting nature and things like that.
Mhm.
But Molly is someone who like takes things very literally and she has like specific things that she can't handle. And there's a lot of stuff that like shows neurodivergency.
Mhm.
And if it wasn't a character created to be neurodivergent, it feels like it changes the interpretation of the novel a little bit, where it's like, oh, isn't it
Mhm.
just fun that we had this fun, quirky character instead of like you built someone who thinks in a unique way in a very thoughtful manner. It just feels like there's almost like not making a joke at the expense of this person, but not understanding the full details of this person and the person's perspective.
I guess
Um,
I can't say because I haven't read the book or like know the author's intentions. You listen to the author do an interview or whatever, but I tend to lean more towards like sometimes these things do just come out, in writing,
yeah,
which is hard. I get it. And a lot of time we
I
know
don't
now that
know.
like there's a lot of people who are discovering that they're neurodivergent
Yeah,
too. So there may be some of that. We don't know. I'm
yeah.
just
It's
trying
just
to
like
give like the author a little.
Molly thinks she's going on a date with someone who's obviously using her.
Hmm.
Um, and he uses her a lot throughout the book, and she is like trying to make her romantic intentions clear, and he's kind of infantilizing her.
Hmm.
And that's where I find myself being like, I don't love that. Like, that's if that wasn't your intention, it does make me love the character a little bit less.
Hmm.
Like, it doesn't feel like you're being it feels like it's being disingenuous to say like it wasn't intended to be someone who's
Hmm.
neurodivergent or she's like, "Oh, I made this quirky character." And it's like that feels weird to like create it. But yeah, you're right. Like it's good to
It,
lean
it's
towards
it's hard to say. It's
yeah.
really hard to say.
But I listened to the first book. It's one where like I think about it from when I was first getting back into reading, I read The Rosie Project, which is like a British novel, and I read it like way back in 2016, 2017, and I really liked it. And it was about this man who like decided he was going to get married, and he went about things very specifically, and like he acted a certain way, and da da da. And then in the second book, like I started reading it, and it felt icky. Like I was like, I don't know what it is about this, but it just feels like we're no longer watching his unique experience. We're watching him be the butt of the plot. Like, the butt of
Okay.
the like and I just like and in the second book his wife gets pregnant and he starts like watching children at a local park and police get concerned and then he like makes it worse for himself and he gets arrested and I was like this is like showing someone who's neurodivergent in a very unsafe way, but it's supposed to be funny. And I didn't love that. Like, I was like, that's not,
Was it intentionally a neurodivergent person or?
yes. And like, that felt really, it was just kind of making him the butt of the joke or the butt of the plot. And I really didn't
Hmm.
like it. And I stopped reading it after that because I was like, I don't
Hmm.
love how this is being interpreted. And I did find that that was something I feared in the maid. I don't know.
Yeah, and this may be me giving too much credit. I don't want people to be ableist for many reasons, but I I just struggle to be like, well, I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to say. Like, I
Yeah,
haven't read it. I don't know anything about the author or anything. I just have
it
seen
just
people
feels like she
share
was very
pictures of it.
infantilized. I think that that's what,
Well,
like,
and but the
yeah.
my question, I guess, would be like, if she was intentionally neurodivergent and they like the author called it out, would that make you feel worse or better
It-
about the infant? Like, I don't know.
yeah.
Because I think that that would maybe make me feel a little worse about somebody who
Yeah.
infantilized if it was a person who was
I th
neurodivergent. I don't know.
I think if it was neurodivergent, like the infantilization, is being done by characters who are bad, and so I would
Mm.
care a little bit like I would understand like it was the intention to show like bad people can
People
try to harm
do
someone,
this. Okay.
and this person is very she perseveres through it all, and she is able to like stand up for herself by the end, and she's able to do things by the end that are
I also
like
do think
very
though, like
unique.
again, maybe I'm giving the author too much credit. Men do that to women and treat us like
Yeah.
we're stupid 5-year-olds that don't
Yeah.
know anything. Like, you just came out of the womb. You need someone to take care of you. You're dumb. Like,
Yeah.
okay,
I don't know. There was just something about it that like rubbed me the wrong. I think it was just the author and
I
her
get it, and
interviews.
you're allowed to feel that way. I don't know. Again, I don't know anything about it. I guess I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, and I'm not doing a good job.
No, I mean, you are playing devil's advocate. That's totally fine. It's just like, I don't know, something about the way the author like talked in
Sure.
interviews just made me a little upset.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, just I don't know. There was something that held me back from really loving the
Sure.
author at the end of the day for this. But I mean, it's a very
That's
famous
valid.
book series, so I don't, I am one opinion out of many. So, um, and then another book I read that I also didn't really love, I got it from the library. It's called Not That Kind of Ever After by Lucy Adams. This is a book that I think I think it was one of those like people thought it was a romance, but it's actually just women's fiction, um, with heavy romantic overtones.
Okay.
And it's a weird book because it feels like it's trying to subvert traditional like fairy tale or traditional romance things, but
Okay.
then ends up upholding a lot of like the thoughts that people have against like people who try to thwart those types of things. So we follow this character who is named Bella, and she's like a hopeless romantic where the
Aren't
first
we
time
all?
yeah, but like the first time we meet her, she's like having sex with a man who like obviously met her when he was already drunk at like 11 p.m. And she's like, maybe if we have sex, it could be like our love story. And I had a moment where I was like, in
What?
what world does a woman think this? Like, if you're gonna be a hopeless romantic, you have to make me believe that. And like, this is not like you didn't build up anything. And so she ends up going home. We find out her
That
life's in
could
a
be the
little
love story? Like,
no, yeah, I mean it was very bizarre. And she goes home and she ends up like she lives with her best friend. The best friend has this partner who they're about to move out and move in together. And like she and the best friend are a little bit codependent. The best friend's dad left when she was young. So like in the first scene, she's like crawling into bed with the friend who is with her partner, which I'm sure can bother a partner, but it seems like the best friend is a willing participant in this, and things like that.
mhm.
Uh, and in this book, there are certain things that happen that where like we're supposed to kind of not be on the main character side and be like, oh, she has some growing to do. And I kept being like, no, I'm kind of on her side. Like,
Mhm.
so she has this like very bloviated sense of like her parents' romance, where she's like, it's the best romance in the world. I can't wait to be proposed like that on someday. And then the best friend's fiance proposes to the best friend the way Bella's parents got engaged, because he knew that the best friend also loved the way that they got engaged, but like didn't warn Bella, didn't ask her if it was okay. And we're supposed
Okay.
to be like, and like Bella kind of has a bad reaction where I think you're supposed to be
Yeah.
like, this is ridiculous. And I'm like, no, it kind of seems like that guy was a dick who stole your parents' engagement. Like
Yeah.
that's really weird and not
It's
okay. Like
strange to do, honestly. Like
it's
I
strange. And he was like, well, she always said she wanted to be engaged like that. And I hate the tropes where like we should be okay with someone doing something because like love conquers all. I mean, no, that was a huge boundary that you violated. And so then Bella like finds out about like this like Wattpad type website, and she like talks to the best friend's brother who's like, you shouldn't take love so seriously. And so she like starts writing under a pen name about like her sexual exploits, and like writing them like they're funny little fairy tale things.
okay.
And I'm totally fine with that. But then like the best friend's fiance ends up shaming her for it, being like, well, you're actually having sex with these men, like that's gross, da, da, da. And she like gets mad at him, but then she ends up like going to the nth degree where she like gets really wasted for a while, and she's like actively like trying to just have sex with men at all times. I'm like, okay, well, like I was actually okay with the story where she was like, I'm gonna take back my sexuality and I'm gonna start having
Hmm.
sex on my own terms, and and like there were certain parts of it where I'm like, I could see where you need to grow, where like you shouldn't be using men for your own stories and things like that, but like you are just reinforcing what the best friend's fiance said about
Hmm.
you, and that makes me uncomfortable because I didn't think there
Hmm.
was anything wrong with you having like sexual fairy tales as long as you were being open and honest about your feelings with people. And it seemed like the only time that it wasn't appropriate was when you weren't being honest or you were using people.
Right.
And so I just felt a lot of different ways about it. And by the end of the book, I was like, I don't really get the point of this novel. Like, um, I
Was it
just felt
long?
like,
This seems
yeah,
like
it
so
was pretty
complicated.
long. And like, you have to get into like her boyfriend or like her, like the best friend's brother is like, the love interest,
I don't know why
obviously,
we
and
have to have
like,
so many things where we like work in the best friend and like how
yeah,
they're connected. Like I'm kind of over that where
but
it's like,
also,
do the
and
best
there were
friends have
like,
to be connected and we fall in love with like, oh, the other Tucker? Like, come
right.
on.
Well, and like, I was actually pretty for the book when it was like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna like try not to take love too seriously, and I'm gonna like go on these little sexual escapades, and like, I've always
Hmm.
put too much effort into this thing. I was like, oh, that's an interesting book to read about. I'm interested in reading this. And like, it's also like, I thought it had a pretty good look at like friendships that are slowly like growing, and it's one of those like, it's not good, it's not bad, there's just like growth spurts going on and it can be
Hmm.
painful. I was here for that. I was also here for the representation of like the best friend at one point. It says like, she's like, oh, what are you doing tonight? And she's like, oh, you won't want to stop by, I'm just having dinner with my like fiance. And she has a moment where she's like, oh, she does know that I don't really like her fiance that much, and like I feel bad. And I was like, yeah, I will say that there have been friends in my lifetime who I don't like their significant other and I don't need to hang out with them. And I liked that representation because I feel like in books it's always like we're all best friends and we're all happy together. And I'm like,
I also think too, there's very much a thing where it's like, you don't have to all be friends. Like you can be
right.
cordial and be
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, like it's fine. But you don't
Yeah.
it almost weirds me out when I feel like people immediately get married and then they're like, all of us are friends. And it's like,
Right.
no, you're not.
No, we're not. Like, because it takes so much more work than just being in the same location as another person that you both equally
Mhm.
love. Like, it's just very strange. So I was there for that representation, but then it got into all the like messy stuff and
Yeah.
it kind of ruined the
Seems
book
so
for me.
complicated.
It
I
was
don't know.
so
It's like a
complicated.
lot's going on there, honestly.
Yeah, it felt like there was way too much. Like, again, if she had just cut out all of the drama of like, well, now I'm spiraling and now I'm not
Mhm.
talking to my friend and now I'm getting drunk and trying to like jump a bunch of men and I look desperate. I was like, I actually didn't need that. Like, you can
Right.
grow without a spiral of self-destruction. And like, here's the thing, I am someone who had a spiral of self-destruction. So I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but you don't always need it in the book to make it like have a resolution.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and so it was just really weird and I didn't love it at all. And yeah, it was just not my vibe. So,
Interesting.
but
Hmm.
for watching
I
or
guess that's one I
enjoying,
won't add to my TBR.
please don't. Um, I went to a talk in Chicago recently with the lovely N.K. Jemisin,
So
and
jealous.
Nevo and Nnedi Okorafor. And those are all the authors I had actually read, but there was another wonderful author on the panel who wrote YA, and he wrote Assassin's Creed things. And I'm trying to look up his name, um, but we will put it in the show
It
notes.
was
But
Matthew something, wasn't it?
Matthew, yes. Um, but I went to their talk and it was like on culture and religion in uh their media, and it was a great time. I had a great time. I thought it was super interesting. I like took a half day for work. It was first come first serve, so I was able to go get my books signed, which was pretty cool. And it is up on YouTube if you want to watch it. So
Yeah, I watched it.
everyone,
It was a good talk.
yeah,
Nevo
they
had some absolute amazing lines. Like some of hers, I was like, wow, mic drop, try to follow that.
she is, oh, Matthew Kirby, that was the other author. Um Nevo's amazing. That's my second time hearing her talk. You and I had also gone to a panel with her before. She's
Hmm.
just so cool. She has like the coolest ideas for books. She announced what her next book is going to be, which is like a Gilded Age novel with
Dark
a very dark like Vietnamese woman like sews a white woman's face on her
face
face
on.
so she
Yeah.
can navigate what needs to happen in the
Hmm.
1920s, which is to find a husband and go to parties and things like that.
It's
Um,
a like a Great Gatsby
yes.
thing.
So I got to meet N.K. Jemisin.
So jealous.
It was very stressful because my husband was in line getting Laura's book and at least one of my books signed. I was going in line to meet Nnedi Okorafor, but like just through the way we had lined up, he was ahead on N.K. Jemisin and her line got longer. And so I was like, okay, I'll go through to get Nnedi. So like I can be done. It'll be fine. And he kept being like, do you want me to just have N.K. Jemisin sign your other books? And I kept being like, trying to mouth to him, like, no, I want to meet her.
Hmm.
Like, and the guy behind him, like, offered to get my book signed because he knew I really wanted them. And I was like, I don't know how to tell people, like, I would
No,
rather
I
not get
want
the
to physically do it.
right. Like, because you were only allowed 3 books per author. And so
Mm-hmm.
I had my third book there. And I was just like,
Hmm.
I, I just don't want to give up on the opportunity that I might not meet N.K. Jemisin. Um, and so my husband Paul got it signed and he mentioned our podcast and she said she had listened to an episode and I almost melted into the
Very
floor.
humbling. Hopefully she hasn't listened to any of the stuff that
She was
we covered on her
she was
books.
she was unaware we had covered her book, so that
Thank
made
the
me feel a
Lord.
lot better. But that was an amazing event. It was just very cool. I was back to back Chicago because I went there for that talk, and then I was also there for Indie Bookstore Day. So just lots of Chicago time, back to my roots. Um, but yeah, that talk was so good. I really liked the authors. Matthew Kirby was very interesting. I think his work
Hmm.
sounds great as well. He is like a school psychologist, and he mentioned that he has like little Easter eggs of what culture means in each of his books that are just kind of for him, which is amazing. I mean, I hope all our
Which
authors get to do
interesting
that.
because isn't N.K. Jemisin also a psychologist?
I thought she was a journalist, but
Well, I think she was a psychologist turned
oh,
journalist turned author, but I could be
maybe
wrong.
she's just that
I could be
cool.
wrong. But
Um,
I think that's interesting because I think about like careers that people have and then they get into writing. And I know lawyering is a very popular one for authors. That seems like there's a lot of authors who are former lawyers or current lawyers. But
mhm.
I think there are several psychologists or
She was a
psychology.
former psychologist, so you are
Hmm.
correct.
Yeah,
Um,
it's interesting to me though, like how many people within certain career groups end up writing books.
yeah, I always like listening to that because I think certain career paths, just like if you're someone who wants to write things, you're like, oh, I want
Mhm.
to analyze this and I want to analyze that. And I was an English major, so I was one of the more boring ones. But um, and then I actually rewatched season 1 of Severance, and like, Laura, I just love that show. I forgot how much I love that show. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. Super weird scenes. I was watching some things and I was like, I forgot that happened. And my sister-in-law was like, that is the weirdest thing I've ever seen on TV. How'd you forget that happened? And I was like, so much happens in the show. You just kind of like let it wash over you.
So I didn't
So,
realize that Ben Stiller was like the lead guy
mhm.
on
He's
that.
the
I had
executive
no
producer.
idea.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Adam Scott is the lead character, but the lead actor, but I didn't realize that Ben Stiller was involved in this in any way. I was like, what? Ben Stiller? How random.
He actually directed Escape from Dannemora, which is also a
Never
very
heard of
good
that.
miniseries with Paul Dano in it. And that's based on the true story of the 2 men who escaped the Dannemora prison because they
Okay.
were having an affair with one of the guards.
Hmm.
Um, so that one was an interesting one. So Ben Stiller, he's pretty good at executive producing and things like that. I mean, he can't admit that he has nepotism, but like he is a pretty good
I mean, his
director.
parents were famous comedian
He
actors.
But like he is one of those people who's like, look, I understand that like nepotism could happen, but like you guys just don't give us enough credit. I'm like, you could just say I have a
I
lot of
mean,
opportunities that not a
yeah,
lot of people get, and I'm very talented because
two
both those
things
things
can
can be true.
exist.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Severance. It's so good. I watched the first episode of season 2. I'm interested to see what's happening. I want to scream at everything. So, um,
Hmm.
yeah, but
I'm still
with
holding out to do
I
any
know
kind
I
of
need to
Apple
reach out to
TV
the
thing.
people that Laura was I just yeah, we can talk about it off air. Should we cycle into Oathbound?
Let's do it.
So we
So
come
much is
in,
happening, Hannah.
so much is happening.
I was talking to you about this before we started recording that it's
So,
mind blowing how little time has passed.
okay, question, because I can't remember because I did not look it up. How long after Bree's mom died did she try to go to this school? Wasn't it like 3 or 4 months?
Just the summer, I think,
Yeah,
right?
so it was like 3 months, and then she's going to this school, and
Like
at one
not
point,
even a year
so
passed.
Sel's mom in this is like 7 months have passed since I've lost my best friend, and I'm like, this has only been 4 months, and then I had a moment where I'm like, okay, I keep thinking like, why aren't Bree and Alice's parents more concerned? And I'm like, well, because it's only been a quarter. Because
Yeah.
it's been about 2 weeks since they stopped talking to them, and it's just
hmm
not been that long.
Well,
Um,
Legendborn, I guess if we think about it, like Legendborn, the first book was a matter of like a couple weeks.
Yeah. And
And
then the
then
next one was like maybe a month, I guess.
a
I don't
month
know. It's wild.
because I think there was like a slight gap,
Yeah.
and then it's like yeah, a month or so has passed. This one picks up right where we left
Right where
off
we
at the
left
end of
off.
Bloodmarked,
Well, and this
and
is
oh
a
my,
prologue to compared to Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time books because it's
I mean
so
this
long.
one's longer.
This
It's
one was
multiple
long.
chapters
It's
within a prologue.
yes.
Tracy, we love
Uh
you, but we don't love this.
we just don't always love a very long prologue. Like you might as well just
That's
make it
mhm.
chapters in the book. But
Yep.
we do follow Bree and Erebus, who, if we remember from the last one, is like head Merlin man, and we find out
hmm
that he's been the
He's
Shadow
also the
King.
Shadow King.
Um, Nick was running after them as, Bree disappears. But she left with him after he agreed to bring Cell to his mother, or to bring Cell to Cell's mother, in order to try to help him from his, corruption into demonia.
Demonia.
They say demonia so often in this book, and every time I'm like, That's a silly word."
I don't mind it.
I
I
like
think
the
there's
phrase
sillier
that
things that
like
occur.
there are sillier things that occur, but there's something about saying like, he's suffering from demonia. And I'm just like, yeah, that makes me giggle. Um, but anyway, they travel to London first, where we meet another one of the like heavy hitter demons, and she has
Yeah,
to kind
because
of
like the Shadow King like basically like grabs onto Bree and just like transports her like almost similar to what we remember like Stone Eaters doing in the last
yeah.
series.
Mm, it's all a cycle. But when they're in London, he makes her give up Excalibur. She doesn't want to. She's kind of like, this is mine. And he's like, so you didn't give me a very specific agreement. You just said you would follow me. And she's
Well,
like,
this is the thing that sucks is like he's like, well, here's the thing, we're still oathbound because technically we made two oaths and you only fulfilled one of them. And it's like, what? Are you freaking serious? So now
and she
she's
was
like
like, it
literally
was,
indebted to him forever.
and it happened so fast. It's one of those things where she's like, I made the agreement. And then moments later, he's like, you made a big mistake. And I'm like, well, you
Yeah.
couldn't even give her like, she thought she was making a good agreement at the time. Um,
It wasn't even like, here's the contract. Read through this real quick.
And so he's like, well, you're blood marked by me, and now you're oath bound to me. So, like, you must travel with me, and I can kind of do whatever I want, and I can make you
hmm
suffer, and it's going to be a
Forever.
bad time for you. So, give me Excalibur. And so she has to. It's really hard. It makes like a crying noise.
I know.
And then she is, then he takes her to his house, and we get a description of the house where we meet
Which is
two,
surprisingly boring.
so boring, where we meet
I love
two.
that. That's such a teenager thing, though, to be like, I really thought this place would be fancier. You're a king.
And he's like, the guy's got to live somewhere. I like an open concept. But we meet two other teenagers whose names are Elijah and Zoe, and this is a
Zoel.
Tracy
Zoel.
Zoel. And this is a Tracy Deonn novel, so we would not be people if you did not have a cute little nickname because Elijah goes by Ja and Zoel goes by Zoe.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes. Every
so
single person has a nickname.
everyone has a nickname. You can't have it. And they are half demon, half humans, just like
hmm
Cell.
Yeah, they're
And
wards of the Shadow King.
and they get to take a test run at Bree where she has to like go hide because at this moment
Mhm.
she has suffered so much trauma in the 7 months she has been here.
Why not give them a chance to eat her?
That
Like,
she's like
might as well.
she's leaking out root, and specifically root because they're like, why is your ether that color? And she
Mhm.
realizes they don't really know what root is. But they have to go play a game of hide and seek where she's supposed to like try to keep herself closed off. She is not successful, but she runs, she hides behind this barn, and she ends up like fighting with them. And she realizes that Bree's a lot stronger than she first thought, or that she has been. Like, she's been going up against people who have trained their whole lives,
Mhm.
but now she's up against two people who are kind of rough around the edges. And she finds out that she like can beat them up and she can overtake them.
Well,
But
and
she
she
also,
also realizes too, because at first I think there's a definite fear, like, okay, they could actually eat me. This could be a problem here. And then she kind of realizes, wait a minute, I'm too valuable to him,
yeah.
to the Shadow King. He's not going to put me in a situation where I could be harmed. And she realizes, oh yeah, his blood mark protects me.
But they also like throw her into the barn, and there's like a
Hmm.
weird coverage going on at the barn that like brings her pain.
Well, yeah, she's like
Um,
smacked up against it.
yeah. And she runs into something, so there's some type of
It's
ward
like this
around there.
barrier that they throw her up against, and she like cracks her head and back on it.
And then they do try to eat from her, and you find out that they can't successfully do it because she is blood marked by Erebus, and so it would kill him. So he comes out and he talks to her and he lets her know that she is often putting herself in danger because she can't control her emotions. They have a moment where they kind of talk about the fact that he has her blood marked and that affected the other's two abilities to eat her ether, like I said. And she kind of comes to terms with that where she's like, oh, I'm a lot safer than I first thought. But
Hmm.
also, like, I've signed myself up to this man.
But not totally safe because you never are, Brie.
He also kind of lets her in on what's been happening with Sal, that Sal's been kind of feeding off her ether in hopes to help, but it's made him addicted and he likely will not survive this. And like Erebus is like, I also wouldn't let that happen. So he pulls some type of magic on her where the next day she wakes up and she can't remember certain details of her life, including any of her friends' faces, their names, or an image of her dad.
Well,
She can
because she
still
thinks it's a mesmer, but it's not really because it's like she can remember things that happened, but she can't remember like the specifics of like, wait a
she
minute, my
has the
friend is in a
knowledge.
coma and I know how this happened, but I don't remember my friend or why we're so
Yeah.
close.
And she like doesn't remember. She remembers longing for one of the two boys, but she, doesn't know who
Hmm.
anyone is. And she can't even remember
Which
her
I wish she
father.
wouldn't remember that part.
I know. I mean, she's always going to remember that she longs for them. She
Come
is a
on. If
16-year-old
anything,
girl.
forget that.
But she can remember her mother. And so she kind of talks to
Mhm.
Erebus, and you find out that he doesn't really know what he did to her either.
Yeah.
Helpful
Because he's like,
King.
oh, interesting.
And so at this point, she wants to return to go back. And he's kind of like, you won't remember anyone. They will question why.
Hmm.
And it would be difficult for her to convince everyone that it's just her memory. He says that he's here to help her. And in order to do that, she has to learn how to actually build constructs and like siphon off her emotions. And that's what this magic was doing, even if it's not the mesmer she thought it
Hmm.
was. She accepts that she really needs to work on this, and she is able to create a barrier when she breaks the earth. Oh, that's the name of the last season.
What?
Uh, During this time, he does mention everything that the Order has taken from her,
Hmm.
and we see some level of almost trust building between the two of them.
I
And
think he's
that's,
very much trying to like get her a little bit like riled up about like, look at all the things that have happened to you. Don't you want some kind of revenge here? Like this isn't right. And she's kind of
she's like,
starting to
he's got a
question
point.
some of these things now. Like, wait a minute.
And that's the end of the prologue. So we join us next week. No, I'm joking. So
It is a very long prologue. It's like 75 pages.
this is a huge shift in the story. When I went and saw Tracy in Chicago, she actually said that she never meant for any of the books to be anything other than Bree's POV, but something about
Mm.
this book didn't work without us shifting perspectives, and that's exactly what we do
I
because
really
when the
like the
book
shifting perspective.
I do too. I think it really opens up the book in like ways I
Yeah.
was not expecting. I'm here for it.
I was
Um,
shocked, honestly. I was like,
I know it's a I knew it
and
was
the
sort of
audiobook is great
coming.
too because we get different actors narrating.
Love it.
Yay.
I knew this was coming because of the interview, but I actually thought it was going to be like Sal's perspective, and I was not here for
No, it's
it. And so
Will.
getting William's perspective is amazing. Um, so we are now seeing through Will's perspective exactly like right after Bree left.
Disappears.
As a reminder, he is the scion of Gawain, we're following Nick and Will like running around. They're talking to Larkin, who said that he was like oathbound to Bree when she was kidnapped. And they're both like, no, you
No,
weren't
you
because you
weren't.
don't share
No.
feelings. You just said like, yeah, I'll definitely defend you. That's not the same thing. But Nick points out that Bree must be alive as with because they still all have their power. Nick in
Hmm.
this scene is like Mr. Competent in a way that I was not expecting.
Shocking.
Shocking that
Shocking.
he has any sort of competency. Like they
And we'll
kept
get there, but there's a moment where I'm like,
I,
do we
I guess
respect him
he's been
now?
like
Like,
right. I also had that moment where I was like, is Nick now winning a little? I
like,
don't what happened?
okay. And
Well, they kept telling us like he was raised to do this, and you and I kept being like, was he
no,
raised to
no.
do this? But in this one, I'm like, yeah, I guess he was. I guess he was
I,
smart all along.
who would have
Shocking
thunk?
news. I thought he was just there to be Bree's little blonde man. Uh, but it's the first time in his life he's actually been useful in these books, is what I
Hmm.
put in my notes. He seems to be logical, figuring things out. He figures out that Cell is still alive. Like
And
he's like, well,
he's like really hard on the other people too. There's less of that happy-go-lucky nature
I
to him,
mean,
which I get it, but also like,
both the people in his throuple have been kidnapped, so he is
yeah.
pretty upset about it. But he is like taking on logical Nick, and he's like, "Look, we still have our powers, so Bree isn't dead. I still feel Cell's anger, so I know he's alive because they said he was like on a murderous rampage before
Hmm.
this, like throwing things in his room, and then he just disappears. And he says that it's probably like a very strong demon. Um, and I suppose he and Will are actually being little detectives because they're like, it was probably one demon and not multiple
Hmm.
demons because it's really hard to get past these uh, wards. So Nick starts scheming to do something. He asks for Larkin's phone, and he ends up calling Lord Kestra, the woman who's been trying to kill him in earlier books. He tells
Hmm.
her to come in, and he's invoking Curia Conventus, and
To
she's
which
like,
Will's like, what?
it is very like Clue energy of
Yes, it is at that moment where Will's like, "Oh no, I can't
uh,
believe that's happening."
and she's kind of like, well, why would we do that? And he's like, because you want to arrest me. And he says, for the murder of Maxwell Zhao, who is the person who tried to kill him in the previous
And
novel.
again, I'm like, "Do we take Nick seriously now? Okay,
I guess,
is he
like,
now a badass? I thought that was Bree's job. Whatever. Okay,
so 24 hours later, Will is visiting Nick and
24 hours.
look, I had to say it. Um,
Honestly, I think the timestamps make it worse.
It does, because it's just like,
Oh.
oh my God, no time has passed us all. But anyway, he goes and he visits Nick in the cells when he's thinking about Cell. He's not allowed to see him, but he does talk to two of the lieges there. He knows that they're on the Southern Faction and it's meant to be a house for Arthur. And it's actually pretty bleak down there. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
pain in the wards and they're like layered upon layered. So like Nick is probably in some pain being there. And he talks to the lieges who say that it is secure, but he knows that it's not because Bree and Sel are missing.
Hmm.
Um, and he also kind of lets him know that he's more concerned about the well-being of Nick. Like he's like, look, my duty
Right.
is to protect people, and you guys are
It's
not
like I
being
care
very
about
protective.
healing.
And then we find out that he like makes a phone call and he called Mariah and Valak, and they are traveling to
Mhm.
come see him. And now we're in Mariah's POV.
Which
And
I actually really like Mariah's POV.
freaking love Mariah's POV, and I want her to have her own series because I
Yes,
adore
some of
her.
the insight that we like, or some of the views that we get of Mariah, where because she does a lot of like comparing of herself to Brie, I'm like, oh,
Laura,
honey, I love this.
do you know what we're in? We're in our Dragon Reborn era of the book series, where Bree is kind
Yes.
of out of the picture and everyone is
I
just
mean,
talking about
she'll
them.
come back even
She
within this
does come back in,
section,
but
but
like for so long, like everyone is reacting
mhm,
without her in the picture, and it's huge.
mhm.
And I could be like, this is what we love to see. Um,
I
so
do like it when people talk about the main character behind her back.
I know. I also like it when they talk about the main character behind her back. They're all little gossipy gals. Uh, and so we learn a lot about Mariah as they're headed towards the outskirts to like come see William. She has a better understanding of Bree than I think Bree even does of herself.
And
Uh,
also, it's so unique to get this like Mariah has like a lot of insecurities about her
Yeah,
own like culture and abilities too
but
that I
it's
think are
never at the
so fascinating.
but it's also never the expense of Brie. Like it's always like I
No.
wish I could be more like her, but I also understand why she is this powerful, why she's
Hmm.
had to make the decision she had. Like she's so level-headed. It's
Hmm.
beautiful because she is talking a lot about Brie. She talks about how she can sometimes feel jealous of her because of her powers and the fact that she's
Hmm.
part of the plan. And Mariah feels like she's just an ancillary person who's watching this big plan come to
Which
fruition.
I think a lot of teens, I mean, I relate to that as an
Oh
adult,
my God,
honestly, but
yeah.
I think teens for sure will relate to some,
Hmm.
and young adults will relate to something like that. The perspective of being like, I'm not the main character, I'm just an associate character
Hmm.
here. And how does that make me feel that I'm, just kind of the helper in someone else's
Hmm.
bigger picture?
Yeah. And she also like gives us a deeper understanding of what it means to like be a medium and having that like tie to death and how
Hmm.
it's not like just an ending, but it is a very natural flow. But she also talks about how like Bree is unique because Bree gets to talk to people and she
Yeah.
like feels frustrated with even that. When they meet up with
She's better at her own power than she
yeah.
is.
And so they do meet up with Will. He hands over Allison and he orders her to be protected. He's like,
Alice
I don't
Chen.
know. Alice Chen. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. This was me
Yeah,
talk
Alice
to
Chen, not
text.
Alice Sen.
Alice Chen, apologies. This was my talks to text and me just reading off a page. He tells them that he knows about, what's been happening and he thinks she's in a coma, but he doesn't know what to do with for her. And
Hmm.
so he's giving her over to them before the order can get there. He then asks Valak if the person who is after Bree is the hunter that they mentioned in previous books that Bree agreed to go after. And this is what I love about YA novels is I'm like, they talked about the hunter in previous books, and then they tell a little story about what was said about the hunter. And I
We
was like,
get the
thank
background.
you. I did not remember that that happened,
And
but
I
you
was like,
just told me.
thanks. I didn't
Yep.
want to have to reread
I,
800 pages.
I also didn't want to have to reread. I'm really glad you told me that Will already knew about this. And apparently, when they were back in the club, like Bree did agree to go after the hunter who's been taking out people with Root.
And honestly, that like did jog my memory because they were like hanging
Yeah,
out at that club and Valak was just info
just
dumping.
talking.
Hmm.
And so Valak ends up mesmering Will to forget all about this person.
Hmm.
And then Larkin shows up because of course he does. And
And
he
his
and
Scottish
Will
accent.
have a little lover spat where they're both like, we're not boyfriends.
Okay,
But
sure.
they
We believe that.
quarrel about how Larkin wasn't in the know and he would like to be part of the mission to get Alice to escape. And Will's like, I didn't know if I could trust you. Like you're just I'm under a lot of pressure right now. They all agree that they're going to help each other in some sort of way. Oh, but I also forgot Valak does get an IOU from Will for taking
Hmm.
Alice, where he's like, you're gonna owe me one. And Will is kind of like, this is a bad idea. Okay, I owe you one. And Mariah on the way out like talks to Valak because a huge part of their culture is like you don't do stuff without other people's
Yeah,
consent. Like
don't mesmer people without.
that is Legendborn, that is order. So like she's like, you
Hmm.
mesmered Will without his consent, like that's bad. And he said he really didn't like it. You can see like it weighs on Valak,
Hmm.
but he was worried
But
about the
he kind of did
order.
it for protection.
Yeah, he did it to stop the order from finding out that this hunter exists and that he's going
Hmm.
after people with root. Because if you can't take down the hunter, who is stronger than all of them, they might go after the prey to try to get to him. And the prey are people with root, and Valak was not
Hmm.
going to let that happen, and he intends to go after the hunter himself.
Yeah, it's his community that he's trying to
Mhm.
protect a little bit here. So,
And then, for the first time ever, we get a noted voice recording of Cell's mother. Uh,
this like the first time I listened to this, I got so excited. I was like, "What?
I know.
Nostalgia?"
And she is talking about how Cell arrived at her house through Erebus. She kind of talks about her background and being locked in the gates, how there's like a lot of bad blood between her and Erebus because she had to like get herself out and be on the run. She sees him as letting her go when they felt she was going to the dark side, and he sees himself as not having any power in the matter. It's
Mhm.
interesting with the fact that we know he is the hunter, but we don't know much else because, like, we're seeing a
Right.
part of him. It's kind of adding a layer of mystery on how much he knows or how much he was a part of this and all those things. So Then and Sel is asleep during this time because he will wake up in a future
It's also
section.
kind of a neat perspective to have too, because we know that like Sel doesn't have the closest relationship with his mother because he was taken away at a young age and everything.
Mhm.
So it's unique to have this perspective that Nastasia has. Like, she's a very inquisitive person, very like scientific mind, you can tell, and she's also just like a mother looking at him, and she says like at one point like he's a marvel or something like that, and then she's like
Mhm.
talking about like, oh, he's got tattoos, like I wonder like does he have,
And Gage is in his ears. When did he
yeah,
do that?
and she's like, I wonder if he has like a boyfriend or any of this stuff. Like, what does he like to do
Boyfriend
and
or
all this? And like,
girlfriend? Yeah.
yeah, and I'm just like, what a like unique, and I love that perspective of a mom who has been not as involved to be like, I just wonder what your life is like, and I'm fascinated by you.
She also is like, "Are you weak like your father?" Which I found ridiculous. I was like, okay. Um, and then we go to the hearing for Nick. We get a rundown of everyone showing up, including
Which this whole
Chester.
thing is just shocking to me. Like,
And then
I have a hard time handling some of this Nick stuff because I'm like,
it's
it's
so
so
jarring
hard
to be
to,
like, he's so competent
yes.
now.
I'm like,
Like,
what?
he's not just in the corner screaming, Bree, no.
He's like, oh yeah, well I have been prepared. We're like, oh, okay.
I've been
I was
I've been
not prepared for you to be prepared.
I've been watching this TV show from Dropout that like Paul still wants you to watch called Game Changer, where they like make up a
Mhm.
new game each time. And the opening is always Sam, who's the host, being going, and I've been here the whole time. And I feel like that's like Nick showing up to these things and
Yes.
like, I've been here the whole time.
And we're just like turning, like slowly looking like, okay.
Okay, I guess. So Nick asks to be sent on a quest, and we find out that like if they
Very
had said
Percy
no,
Jackson of him.
if if they had said no to coming, they would have broken their one oath that they have to the
Hmm.
Legendborn. So he
Hmm.
had them like over a barrel by
Yeah.
asking for this like quorum of people, and they also really can't deny him the quest unless like they can
He
find
read the
fault
fine
with it.
print. Who would have
Mhm.
thought this is a guy who reads the fine print?
And everyone's sitting there like, "Ah, he's gonna ask to go on a quest to go after Bree and Cell, and like they can obviously say no to that because it's not right, you know.
Hmm.
And but he is a smart man, apparently.
What?
And he's like, no, Cell is a lost cause. I can't go after him. And you know what? Bree looks like she went of her own volition 'cause she was so sick of you racists and misogynists. And like he
Well,
just
and then he's like, we have to change up the way that we run things around here because you're all so freaking racist. I'm like,
it's so funny because
what?
even William in the stands like has his clue moment of and then he's like, oh my gosh, I think I might be racist too.
Yeah.
Like it's
And
just
he
right
does have
all
that moment where he's like, wait a minute, have we been racist this whole time? Like, Will?
It's like the episode of Community with the one guy in the trampoline.
Yes. Where they're like, oh, wait a minute. Like there's in this fugue state, they don't even realize that the guy is a horrible racist.
I usually don't let people like you come back here or something. Like it's awful and it's like
Yeah,
in your
and then
face.
Troy's like, has he been racist this whole time? And then they do the flashback to the other stuff he said. Yeah.
So that is William being like, have we been racist the whole time?
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, like Nick's like, nope, you're all a bunch of fucking
Hmm.
you're racist. And of course Brie doesn't want to be around you guys anymore.
Yeah.
And until we clean up our act, she's not coming back. So like, why would I go looking for her? She's probably
Here's
better
the
off
thing,
where she
Nick.
has agency.
Nick using his privilege and white man power for good? What?
This is actually what white
What?
men in biracial relationships are supposed to act like, and it's
Or just like white
shocking.
men all the time? Like,
Yeah,
what?
it's shocking that he figured this out. I'm so shocked by Nick's like 180. Um, yeah.
It's hard to reconcile with this.
And then he says, no, I'm not going after Bree or Cell. I'm going after the line of the Morgaines who helped try to infiltrate the order earlier this
Hmm.
year. And William is also like, weren't they kind of helping us? But Nick seems to be like, well, they can't deny me because
Yeah.
I'm offering to help the order. And they're kind of like, well, we think your quest is ridiculous for this reason. And he like answers very thoughtfully. And then they like catch him because they're like, okay, well, you have to go have two people who are willing to travel with you.
He's like,
And
no,
he's
by myself.
no, by myself. I'm doing this by myself. And then William's
To
like,
which Will's like, I
I
volunteer as
volunteer.
tribute.
And Lark is like, I volunteer as Will's boyfriend.
Of course you do. Get your Scottish accent out of here.
And so they're like, okay, you three, you're going on a quest. So they are going on a quest. Even though I also forgot, like, we had to have a rundown of every single person who entered the room. And Felicity is
Hmm.
still like numero person non grata because they're all like, well, if we might be racist, you are the most racist.
Yeah.
So get out of here.
Well, then there's all
Um,
like the Max Zhao stuff
Yes.
happening
So then
too.
Merlin tries to murder Nick.
Hmm.
And this is his name is Thompson. Of course it is. And we find out that Thompson was
Of course it is.
was
What?
romantically involved with Max, and he was his person. And Nick is able to fight him off, and everyone has the same
Very
reaction.
easily.
And everyone in the room is having the same reaction you and I have had throughout this entire section, where they're like, "Has Nick been competent the whole time?"
They're like, was he always a good fighter? Like he's fast and strong now?
And everyone realizes
Um,
that he's been holding back, and he's like been fighting Cell his entire life. So like, of course. Um, and oh, doesn't Will also like stand up for Nick at this point where he points out to
mhm.
the order that they're mocking how he's like chaotic and he's in your face and da da da, and he's like, those are
He's like,
all.
how dare you put some respect on
He's
his
like, put some
name?
respect on Lancelot's name. That's what he's here for. That's his whole reason for being. We also meet like the other person who could be part of Lancelot's line. So
Mm.
they kind of point out, like, look, you can't treat him like he's Arthur anymore because he's not. He's competent and Lancelot. So we cut back over to Sel's mom, who is discussing the fact that he woke up a few weeks ago, but he's still not quite himself. He
He
won't
won't
speak to
talk.
her. He's very emotional. And we do kind of find out that it's by choice because, he
Yeah, which
sees
is
her as deserting him.
so on.
I mean, it
It's
is very so.
it's
He was an
it's
abandoned child, but he is
it's
now
very on point for him.
suffering from demonia, so we can't, only blame him.
He's suffering from
Um,
demonia. That's why he's having a little temper tantrum
he
and
is
won't
having a temper
speak.
tantrum. And she kind of understands why he's upset and she's
Oh
ruminating on
yeah, I
it.
would too. I mean,
She,
I
it's
say
also
he's
very,
having a temper tantrum, but also like, what a difficult thing to
yes.
be in this situation and be like, oh, now you're
Also,
here.
this is a funny section because at some point, like, she's like, I'm doing a voice recording. And he's like, will you shut up? I did find that funny. Like, that is enjoyable that he's
We're
like,
getting
can you
back to Cell
stop
being
talking?
hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. So, uh, it's also really sad because she starts ruminating on Bree, and here's where we find out
And
it's only
Bree's
been
mom and
7 months
Faye.
since Faye has died, and she's like, well, at least Bree is out of this. Like we find out that they kind of tested her, and it didn't look like she had any active root at the time, which makes sense because it's one lit line at a time, so it didn't get activated until Faye
Yeah,
had
and
died.
she, like her last thing she says is like, well, at least Bree's free of all of this.
I know,
Oh
and it's
my
like, oh,
gosh.
honey. Then we cut him back over to
We need
Mariah,
a news
and
connection here.
it's been 2 months since Bree has disappeared. And we
No
do
time.
learn even more about Mariah in this section. She's someone who's very proud. She really wants to be someone who makes a difference.
Mhm.
She's helping her family with Alice during this time, and she's kind of discussing how she sees each of them and who they are. She's a very like contemplative person. Valak comes over. He kind of gets into a word tussle with one of their cousins. I also love this section because like we're all cousins, we're all family, but like this is a cousin who sees Valak as less than because he's half demon. And Valak is like, look, I knew your ancestors, my guy. Will you leave me alone? And the cousin ends up going too far and he's like kicked off the property by one of the
Yeah.
aunts where she's like, you will not speak to Valak like that. You are
Is it
going to leave.
Hazel or Lou that
I think it's
kicks him out?
Hazel. It's because Mariah says like, oh, that's more what Lou would do, but like
Okay.
Hazel, I can't remember which one, but one of them, like the less reticent one or the more reticent one, is the one who kicks him off
Hmm.
the property, and they say like, don't come back until we sent for you, so he's in
Hmm.
trouble. And so they all come in, and Valak says he has a theory about Alice. He thinks she's stuck in limbo and they can't get to her because she's in between the living and the dead. But they do want to send Mariah after her. Uh, and she has a moment where she's like, well, Bree would do this, so I'm going to do it. And she takes this tea that has her travel into Alice's world. And she kind of sees
Hmm.
that death is chasing
Just
after
looming there,
Alice,
like waiting for her.
but Alice is kind of stuck in the moments before she goes into the coma, where she's just reliving the scene over and over and over again.
Well, it's like a moment where she's like, try again, try again, reset, try
Hmm.
again. Let's do over
And
to
it's like she's
try
trying to
and
figure out a
figure out
way where
another
she
way
could
to get
keep
out of it.
herself protected. And then Mariah is thrown out of the dream. And so she talks to her aunts and she talks about the fact that like Alice seems to be fighting this. It's probably why she's holding on, but like death is near her and they need to do something about it.
Hmm.
And then Valak brings up that he wants Aunt Lou to travel with him to talk to this dark court of demons. And
From like
Mariah's
the
like,
Shadow Court, right? Isn't that?
the Shadow Court. Yeah, sorry. And Mariah's like, that thing actually exists. And he's like, of course it exists. And she's like, but you kind of like hinted at it when we were talking to William. And he's like, you think I'm going to tell a Legendborn about a Shadow Court?
These people can't keep
Um,
secrets.
and Mariah's like, well, our aunt can't travel, but I could. And do they even know what she looks like? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure they know she's not 17, but I
But
guess.
then again, like they have like this youthful appearance. Like
That's
Valak
true.
looks so young, we don't know. And
And
she has like a certain amount of blood that she thinks that she can like because they're blood
mimic
relatives that
her
she
look.
can
Yeah.
yeah, that she can mimic and get through like, they're not going to question too much because they're going to recognize some of that same family relation there.
Right. And so then we
So
go
she
back
gets to be the
over
dame.
to Natasha and her audio log. And it's her like trying to work
It's
with
like day
Cell.
432,
I mean, it's two
still not
months.
talking.
But he does finally talk to her about like how her attempts to assist him aren't working. Like I said, he kind of gets like grumpy and he's like, will you stop
Hmm.
talking? This is ridiculous. It's been 2 months. I don't know why you're trying to save me with these tonics. They're just not working.
Hmm.
And he kind of like blames her a little bit. And she takes it. She just wants to help him. And she
It's
does
very
notice
much
that
the energy of my sister telling my mom, like, I don't like any of the food around here.
where
And my
she's like,
mom being like, okay, well, I'm the one that makes all of it. Okay, cool. Thanks.
um, fair enough. And so she kind of is talking to him, and she's like, well, like you have a reason to fight. You seem to be fighting this. Like we could get past this. But she also knows they're running out of time because demonia be demoning. And
Demonia be demoning.
he is demoning a lot in this section.
I'm
Like he is
just picturing moaning.
I know he is, but like if you think about it, Cell demones a lot. Like he be demoning. I don't make the rules. Um,
Playing so much, he's demoning.
he is demoning a lot. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, Mom. Like you can't tell me he's not demoning. Um,
I
so
love
anyway,
that.
they kind of talk, and this is when he tells her that Nick didn't pull Excalibur out, that it was Brie Matthews, and she's kind of like, "Well, all of my hope just
And
got
she's like,
burnt
oh,
up."
well,
Yep,
that sucks.
and part one ends with Selwyn Kane turning and walking into a room and slamming the door, screaming, "You're not my real mom." He doesn't scream, but
Which,
like he demoans a lot.
yeah.
And so then we're back with Bree 3 months after she disappeared.
Mhm.
And she is hunting for demons, little demons, and making constructs with like little throwing knives
Mhm.
with Elijah and Zoel. And she's been
They're
hunting
kind of
with them.
friends. I love the way she describes them, where she's like, Zoelle is like a combination of someone who could either go to a bookstore or a concert. And uh, Elijah is definitely like coffee shop.
He's also like Mr. Book Nerd and Mr. I Love Erebus, and they
Yeah.
both make fun of him so much for being like teacher's pet. It's like he is the
Yeah.
Shadow King, like he's a big deal.
I would
Um,
maybe watch a P's and Q's, but
but I do like this because it's the first time for a long time that Bree gets to like hang out with people who have other interests other than like Bree being Arthur because they don't know. But
mhm.
I think Zoe
Brie
is
does
like,
get a lot of unique experiences like this, though, where she's thrown into new groups and does really connect with people well and is able to really get along with people and kind of appreciates her time interacting with others, it seems. And I like this.
I do like this, and I like that like they get to talk about things like the Real Housewives and just very
Mhm.
silly things that she gets to be a little bit lost in this, even though she's learning how to use her powers.
Hmm.
But we do find out that she is kind of on a short leash. She can't just go wherever she wants. She's with them. And that's unique in this tonight of all nights when we are with her. Um, they get called from an informant that the person wants to meet at the Rat Scallion, a cafe slash bar downtown in
Hmm.
Asheville. And he has information to give them, and he wants them to be there in an hour. And Bree's like, just take me with you. It's fine. And I was like, Bree, this is an awful idea. People know what you look like, but I digress. So they do take her. The rat scallion is owned by a human, and it's kind of like a dirtier, more dangerous version of Valak's bar. And
Hmm.
she knows this in the back of her head, but she can't remember who Valak is. So she's still
Right.
struggling with those parts of herself. But she does go in. She is controlling her power for the most part. She's trying to stay calm. Uh, but as they wait, she decides to go to the bathroom because she starts feeling a little bit overwhelmed with everything.
Hmm.
And once she's in there, this man comes in with a girl who has root, and
Hmm.
she realizes like he is a warlock because he's human, because he's like, oh, you
Yes.
see this? And the girl convinces
Well, he
him,
had slapped her,
oh, yeah, he slapped her.
and
And
she like falls on the ground, and Bree's like, "Whoa, wait a minute! I was just in here because of period-related things, and I didn't realize that this was going to become this intense." Wow.
and the girl does like ward him off by being like, she doesn't have root, just leave her alone. I'll go with you willingly. And they both like leave the restroom. And Brie, of course, wants to save them. And so, or wants to save the girl. And so she runs after
Hmm.
them into the parking lot. And like Zoe thinks she's trying to run away. And she's like, no, but like these people were taken, this girl was taken. We have to stop it. And then she figures out that it was likely the Shadow King who wanted the girl
Hmm.
in the first place. And Bree has a moment where she realizes who she has agreed to work with.
Yeah.
Um, and, that kind of resonates with her, and she just struggles with it. She realizes that she chose to be in this circle, and she chose to be with Zoe and Elijah too,
Hmm.
and she just keeps choosing. But that girl didn't make the choice that she had. She was just a
She
stranger.
was kidnapped, really, and uh,
And that is the end of this section. So
hmm,
I am loving it so far.
it's so
This is
good.
great. We are back in it. We are back in our YA girly days,
Hmm.
and it's a lot of fun. I'm shocked by Nick.
What
But
a what a
what a
transformation!
turn. He's just so useful in this section. I don't
If
understand.
only like all men could have this kind of growth. Like, wow.
But everyone, join us over on our Discord, or, throw a comment in the chat if you're listening on Spotify about your thoughts of it so far.
Yeah.
We would love to hear your thoughts on this section or even the next section as we go into it
Or the whole
next
book.
week. Or the whole book, because Laura's already read it. DM
Yeah.
her.
So
And you
good.
you can reach out to us by following us at OWWR Pod on all social platforms
Hmm.
where we are located, or visiting us at ourpod.com. We
And
just
we
put
have an
up,
email too,
we have, yes.
ourpod@gmail.com.
And, we have a Discord. If you wanted to join us on Discord, we'd love to have you over there. You can
I
also
want that to
join
be more
me.
active, but we
We
need you people to start conversations because I am an introvert.
and I have a very demanding job sometimes. But if you're also interested, I am doing a Mega May this year again. And so if you want to be joining, if you're reading any 500-page chunkers of a book where
Like
demons are demoning and
Bloodmarked.
like Bloodmarked or Oathbound, you can follow along and make sure you're sharing your progress on it because, that's just a great month. I've been hosting that for a couple of years and it's a ton of fun.
Hmm.
And I'm even buddy reading The Lies of Lamora. So can't
Oh,
wait to dive
friends
into
talking
that.
fantasy would be excited.
I know they'd be so thrilled with me doing my fantasy homework.
All you got to do is listen to
But
like Red Hot Chili Peps in the background or something.
how long, how long?
Isn't that who they
But
like?
no,
Red Hot Chili
it's
Peps. Who is it?
specifically not Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's oh gosh, oh god, it's the people who sing La Belle Door because that is my deep cut on those. Um,
I have no idea who it is. I just know there's a specific band that they also like,
It
and I
is Counting
associate with them.
Crows. It is
Counting
Counting Crows.
Crows.
There
Ah,
we go.
yes. That is it. Counting Crows
So
and Lies of Black Lamora I
yes,
associate with Fred's Talking
I'll
Fantasy.
start doing that tomorrow. And if you wouldn't mind, tell a friend about us or give us a
Yes.
five-star rating, either wherever you listen to this. Those things help so much.
Hmm.
Laura and I were both at Indie Bookstore Day this weekend, and we were handing out bookmarks and things like that. But we also would love if you spread the word a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah, sharing
So
really helps. And we even just appreciate you listening today. That means
we
a lot.
appreciate you coming back to us to cycle through Legendborn. This is great. It's a great
Yes.
time. And we will see you next week as we cover the next 17 through, I believe it is 38. We're going to cover the next 22 chapters because that's how it broke out evenly once we took into the prologue into account. So we can't wait to cover the next 33% of this novel. Bye.
Bye.